just going into your activism, since we're kind of talking about that a little bit. So you kind of mentioned your sick film school a little bit. So can you talk about that a little bit more and how you help, was it school kids in the New York area with film school and basically addressing gun violence in that area?
Yeah, we started the SICK Film School last year. SIC, again, I think I mentioned earlier, stands for
Mhm.
Social Impact Content. And the idea is that we're not just educating filmmakers, right? People can go any film school to learn. There's a bunch of film schools, and then now more than ever, you don't even need to go to film school. You could just get on a set somewhere as PA.
Right.
There's a million tutorials online. Everybody's got a tutorial on how to light a scene, set up a camera. I mean, when I started out, as successful as I am now, I never went to film school. I never went to any college. I didn't have YouTube then. I didn't have any tutorials. Like, I had to teach myself how to edit. All these different things, just figure it out. So people are in this generation is much more intuitive with technology. So you can figure that part of it out. Um, the purpose and the reason I wanted to start a film school now, it's uh, it's 2.0 of guns for cameras. Back in 2005, there weren't enough filmmakers from our community, right? This is
Right.
before Instagram. This is before YouTube exploded. When I picked up a camera, all my friends on the block were laughing at me, right? Because it just wasn't a thing. Like, if you were a
Right.
thug, you didn't touch a computer. There was just like a complete disconnect between those two realities. Now it's like the biggest gangsters are on social media, right?
Right.
Or they think they are, right? Or even the real ones are actually like they on there too. They stunting and trolling, and but there's no separation from it, right? So um, I started Guns for Cameras in 2005 to take guns off the street and give away video cameras, and I was hoping that not only would I save some lives by empowering. You can't tell somebody not to do something unless you're providing them with an opportunity, right?
Exactly.
'Cause it comes back to everybody got to eat. So you can't preach or dictate, or you can't use fear tactics when a person has nothing to lose. Like, you have to give them an opportunity. You have to give them something else to do. And the film camera, I saw at that point, before it was popular, that it was a powerful alternative, because you still point and shoot, but you're pointing and shoot a camera that creates like
Right.
an opportunity. So I was teaching young kids to aim to live. Fast forward 15 years later, and also the other byproduct of that I was looking for as an objective of Guns for Cameras was that these kids would pick up a camera, not only save their lives, but then be able to go out into the industry and hopefully help diversify the corporate ranks, raise up in their career to kind of change the narrative in the media, right? If someone onto news networks or movie studios or whatever, because the view back then was much more skewed. Thankfully, today there's a bigger cultural shift. Um, there's a lot more recognition. It's like actually in now, right? To be like every major brand is supporting Black Lives Matter. So culturally, there's no longer racism. And when I say culturally, it's like if anybody says anything online racist, they're immediately canceled, they're
Right.
fired, or whatever.
I still think
No,
we have a
there's a
long
difference.
road to go,
I'm making
but
two,
we are making more progression.
but I'm listen. I'm making two very clear distinctions.
Hmm.
Culturally,
Right.
as a society, there isn't any more racism, because we've all agreed as a social contract that this is something that's not acceptable. So
Right.
people can't just outright do it. But systematically,
Oh, yeah.
there's still a huge amount of racism, and that's where the bigger problem is, because that's where you have the difference in the criminal system. A judge giving this white boy, probation, and then for the same charge or the same drugs, with locking this person up for 15 years, or from the historically of what happened with real estate and redlining and not selling properties to certain communities. Like,
Right.
it just devastated us and put us back so far to an opportunity now. The obstacles are, really challenging to overcome. But I'm just saying, culturally, hip hop music is the dominant music in the world, right? In the U.S. market, it's bigger than like 27% market share. So there's no question about there. We talk about the NBA, the NFL. We're leading the leagues in star performance athletes, endorsements. Um, culturally, Black Lives Matter is very relevant in society. This is why the movement and the process, the protests have taken hold to such a great extent. You have people around the world, millions of people around the world, people in France or Europe and other countries doing Black Lives Matters protests for shootings that are happening here in the United States. So we're in a much different space than we were just a few years ago, right? So it's great that that's changing. But back to what I was saying about the progression from Guns for Cameras to the Sick Film School. Now I feel like the onus is more on, you have these influencers and you have these people who know how to create content, and they're getting millions of views, millions of followers, and now it's a matter of them being responsible with that voice, right? So the purpose of this Sick Film School is not just film education, but it's film education accompanied with this social impact. We're only nurturing voices to create social impact content, whether it's creating documentaries or films. The content they create has to help amplify the message of some charity or organization in society. And they have to do stuff for social good, or just don't sign up, don't come to the school. But for the people who are, last year we took 30 kids out of Queens in partnership with Erica Ford's Life Camp organization, and worked with kids who were affected by gun violence. And I gave the kids all a free 10-week film class, and each week they went to a different place. We brought them to the YouTube space in New York. Shout out to Adam Rellis and Michelle Joyce for hooking that up, and Marcel's our marketing director for the film. But it's, for me, it comes back to getting out of this space of being so obsessed with our freedom of speech and our personal liberties, and reinvesting in a social contract that we're not in this world alone. Everything shouldn't be me. Like, people won't wear masks. Oh, I have my freedoms. Fuck your freedoms. Your freedoms are intertwined with all of our freedoms. It's not about like it's, what I mean? Like, people get so obsessed with thinking that the world owes them something. Yeah. So I think we just had to have more compassion and love and understanding, and be more considerate that we're all in this together.
Right. So with that being said, what do you feel is the next step for the Sick Film School, or even more films upcoming for you in the future?
Well, we are talking. We are talking to YouTube about potentially doing something, a bigger partnership with them. They've been supportive of the school in the past. We have our new series on there now that we just launched for the month of September, Suicide Prevention Month, or Suicide Awareness Month, and I hope that we can engage in partnerships with more schools that are doing film education, to get some of their students to think more about social impact, that we can engage with more brands. So when they're creating the narratives, whether it's in advertising and how they're promoting products, they're doing it in a more responsible way. And then especially just in the studios, that they greenlight more films like this.
Definitely.
I'm making it personally difficult for myself to follow this path, because I want to do it a very defined way, not because I'm trying to prevent the success of this film, but I feel like I have to take on every challenge. I have to take the hard route every time, because when the film is successful, I know I'm going to make it successful. Everything I've ever done in my career has been super successful, being honored by 2 presidents, like I'm not even going to go through my, resume, but it's, I'm willing to take every challenge, instead of going the routes that I know where I could have had this done in a way that it would have been a lot easier and a lot sooner and a lot, whatever else, but it wouldn't have had the same impact. And some of those other burdens I'm unnecessarily taking just so I can make room for other people to come through and have this access. Because the biggest problem in any industry is access. So any of your viewers, you want to get into film production, you want to get in acting, whatever it is. Our lead is a relatively unknown actor, right? He's a successful musician and entrepreneur with his fashion line, and he's been in a couple small things. But it's, in terms of Hollywood's, the way they look at it, they don't know him. They never heard of him. It's like, and early on, where I was talking to distributors, we were considering pre-selling our foreign rights. They're like, oh, who's your lead? If you put this other guy in, and we'll give you this much money. I'm like, forget it. I'm like,
Right.
conversation over. Like I'm not playing to the system's rules.
Yeah. So one last thing I actually want to ask you, with going about mental health and overall suicide awareness, do you believe that the industry and society is basically more putting out awareness? Do you think they're doing a better job about mental health? And if not, how do you think we should go about bringing more awareness?
You have some good questions. I will say this. Last year, because I did a year of research before I even started writing the script, and I had ideas. But last year, while I was putting this film together, I got another project. I was blessed to have another project just fall into my lap. We're doing the Hector Camacho movie after this, and everyone around me was like, even they know my heart and my passion for social impact and everything I've done in my career, like, is geared to that. They're like, well, you got to do the Hector movie because you this is gonna easily do 400 million, right? Like,
Right.
he's such an icon, and nobody was checking for or talking or even thinking about mental health. Um, no discredit to the organizations that are working hard every day, but I just mean on a national, like, mainstream level, right? It
Right.
wasn't a relevant conversation. And then even at the beginning of this, when coronavirus and the deaths started to go up. I don't know what we're at. I don't know. I haven't checked, but what are we at? 300,000 deaths maybe globally.
Yeah,
Um,
I know the US is number one right now.
but if you compare that, and not that that should ever be a comparison, but just to put it in perspective, 800,000 people die from suicide every year.
Mm.
Like, and we have all this ascension for COVID, and obviously it's more about prevention attention, because if we don't practice social distance and wearing a mask, which I'm a huge advocate of, take this shit very seriously. I lost a brother-in-law and family members to coronavirus, but it's given so much attention because then it's also politicized, and then there's all other agendas built around it in terms of fear-based marketing. But why aren't we talking about the real realities of things that we can fix that'll make our lives better, right? Going back to what you said earlier on, in the conversation of us just being more productive if this is something we address. So, fast forward, one of the silver linings in all this tragedy around the pandemic is that there is much more awareness now today around mental health,
Right.
because there's been such a huge spike in issues, domestic violence, divorce rates, all these different things, people being depressed, isolated, um, high levels of anxiety. Now it's a national conversation. Now people are talking about it. And now, I'm like, in the last couple of weeks, I've seen a few headlines in the film industry, other movies coming out addressing mental health. And while this was a struggle for me before to get to this point, I'm glad that the world's going to be more receiving of it. But the bigger thing that I'm happy about is that the attention is going to be there, right? Because for me doing this film, it's not for me to have any personal gain. It's just to help. If somebody else copies the movie and puts it out before mine and they win a bunch of awards, I'm not going to be mad at that. It's like, you're doing the work. The objective is that people are impacted by the subject matter, and we change the conversation and people get help.
Yeah, well, I love the message that you are putting out to the masses to get more educated about mental health. And I love it what you have done overall in your career as far as activism and helping the Black and Brown communities. So, my actual last question to you is, where can we, as the listeners and myself, can find you social media wise, websites, or anything?
Instagram. I'm on YouTube. Our new series on mental health is on YouTube. I'm on Facebook, but I don't check that much. But my IG, I don't know if I said it earlier. I was thinking about saying it. Maybe I didn't finish the thought. But when I was talking about access, I'm always willing to help put people on. So I respond to every DM. If you shoot me a DM, as long as it's about business.
Right.
You shoot me a DM.
No shooting the shots in the
Yeah,
DM.
yeah, no slide, no sliding. Yeah, if you shoot me DM about, you know, that you want to get into production, as long as you're passionate about it. I don't want to just take people who are just on a whim, you know, like, oh, this might be cool. No, like, if you've really been putting in the work and putting in the hours and you have the talent, but your problem is access, right? You're not able to get that in. I'm always, you know, trying to plug people in and put them on, whether you're you know, or join my crew or I just refer you to somebody else, because I have such a large network of people that I'm connected to. And you don't have to have the experience, right? I'm not one of these people who's, oh, let me see your resume and what have you done before.
Right.
When Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, he never did a social network before that, right? There was no precedence
Exactly.
for you knowing what success he was capable of. So I don't treat anybody, no matter how early on in their career they are, I don't judge them. Not for their experience, but purely for their talent and their work ethic. So yeah, DM me, and it's all the same. Hezues R, HEZUES R, at all my social, and then the website is HezuesR.com as well.